see Ricker here up front leading TC.
Now in TC, the new Hyundai Elantra N is dominant. Jeff Ricker sweeps the weekend.
My name is Jeff Ricker. I'm the owner of GenRacer and Ricker Autosport, and I'm a professional race car driver in TC America and a team owner. With our business with aftermarket parts sales online, we saw that a platform that was needed during the time was a rear-wheel drive 2-liter turbo chassis that would be great for the aftermarket scene. And that's exactly when the 2010 Hyundai Genesis Coupe was released in the United States. So we jumped on that opportunity, and from there we started building our product lines along with our partnerships with other aftermarket companies to bring aftermarket parts, performance parts for that chassis. And then from there, we just built our relationship with Hyundai, and with the N brand that they released, it was for us a great opportunity to jump on and bring more diversity to our company. So working with Hyundai USA, we got a Veloster N. Working with the series SRO, we were commanded to be the official homologator and builder for that chassis to run in that class. And from there, building more cars. Now we're here with the Elantra N. So the Elantra N works very well in the TC class because the TC is a dedicated either front-wheel drive or wheel drive class that usually nets around 270 to 310 horsepower. And it's a touring car, meaning it is a production-based class with production-based cars that are used as street cars, but also could be turned into race cars, netting around 300 horsepower in these chassis. So starting to talk a little bit about what we do with the street car to make it a race car. It's actually not a lot we change. We work a lot with the factory Hyundai N components, especially the electronic system. We do not touch any of the electronic systems because they work well. So a lot of their features that they have are really derived from racing. This is why the Hyundai N product works so well as a race car. From their N mode, from their N mode exhaust, their ELSD N curve, they call it. There's a lot of features on the street car that Hyundai uses that are branded on the N that actually have a race philosophy behind them. Little things that we might touch upon is we tune the electronic ECU, and we also change the electronic limited slip differential ECU. Other than that, factory ABS system, all the body modules are factory. We actually use the factory tire pressure monitoring system too, because that works very well in the car. Just change the rear wing with a tunable TCR wing, and we do some brake ducts. But overall, the exterior of the car isn't really touched upon because A, the rules don't want us to change anything like that, but the factory design of the car is very aerodynamic. There's really no need to put a splitter on this thing. There's no need to do anything extravagant in the front to get more grip or downforce. The DCT, we don't touch anything with the dual clutch wet transmission. That's actually an untuned item, and we don't actually do any type of modifications to it. A lot of the N features that are great for the street and even better on the track is the ability to change the maps to do an N mode or a custom mode, and that custom mode allows us to fine-tune the electronic steering, fine-tune our maps for the electronic stability control, and the ability to turn off traction control. Utilizing the N features and the N modes gives us a lot of good performance from a street car and on the racetrack. Can we do whatever we want? There is a set of guideline rules that SRO has. SRO has something called homologation, and a lot of people ask, what is homologation? Homologation is actually a document that a manufacturer will then supply to the race series, and this document is close to 200 pages, and it shows everything that's on this car and what it's being raced as. There's no gray areas on what one part can be changed from another part. If we wanted to make any changes on that, we would actually have to go through paperwork to make that approval by the series to use that one change. Maybe a different manufacturer rotor that we want to change, or the manufacturer made a facelift and they want to do something different on the front bumper. All right, so let's talk about the season so far. and our debut of the Elantra N in the TC class. Going into the start of the season, we were down to the wire, getting the build completed and making the first event. We actually missed the BOP test back in February because we were still waiting on a bunch of parts like the KW suspension system, and we were waiting on the radiator and the intercooler that still were not being built or in time. We actually scrambled, got the parts in before leaving to go to Sonoma in March. And that's where we just crossed our fingers to say, hey, I hope everything works and let's go across the country and start racing this thing. We get to Sonoma and it's dominant. Right out of the box, every session we are on top of the charts. Even in the rain, we actually went so fast, we were faster than TCX, which is a class above us that makes more power than us. The series was kind of surprised, but they were very receptive to what we could do for changes to make it slower, you could say, to get the car within the class limits. We ended up getting the car somewhat in a window, but we did win both races that weekend and went too fast. We had like 11-second lead on both races, but we also had some issues too. With any new car, there are issues. The fuel system is actually a little bit different than the Veloster. And we run ATL 80-liter fuel cells in these cars. Well, the evap system, which we still utilize in both the Veloster and the Elantra, has a different plumbing system, and we were not aware of that. That being said, when we filled the fuel up to its capacity for races, on deceleration, the evap system was sucking in fuel from the charcoal canister, and we were dumping an enormous amount of fuel into the intake chamber, which then caused it to be very rich. Still got through the races, winning both races, didn't think anything of an issue. We get to New Orleans, the next round, and we noticed that in practice one, that the car is burning oil. We weren't too concerned about it, but we still were keeping an eye on that. We did fix the evap system, so we didn't have any more fuel being burnt on deceleration. But as the sessions progressed that weekend and we got to practice two, we noticed that the catch can was being filled with oil. And when we pulled off the intake manifold was completely filled with oil. Turns out we ran so much fuel into the motor that wasn't getting burnt, it actually washed the cylinder walls to a point when we did a compression test, we severely damaged the motor and we're burning oil regularly. So we bring actually our street car to the races, and we bring that as a spare car because it's more feasible to take a part off a car that is there as whole than just stocking our trailers with all these spare parts, knowing that what will and will not break. So we ended up taking the street car motor out that night before qualifying and putting it into our race car. In the race, we ended up winning overall in our class on both races. So we left that weekend with 2 wins, plus the 2 wins we were in the first 2 rounds at Sonoma. So we were leading the series. I actually had to skip the Circuit of Americas round 5 and 6 because it was an overlaid event with the Nürburgring 24 hours. And I teamed up with Hyundai USA and Hyundai Global to run with them for the 24-hour race in a Hyundai i30N VT2 car. So I ended up not getting any points for that event. So that put me back from first in the class to second, and then going into Virginia round 7 and 8, we won every practice. We were on pole again for our first race, and we were leading about like 2 seconds after they did our BOP set changes of reducing power on the car, adding more weight, adding more ride height. And then our first mechanical issue, and that is an intercooler piping popped off. As simple as it is, no matter how tight we got the coupler, it just, with all the heat and being on track and expanding and contrasting, it popped off. We came at the pit, and I went from first to last, repaired it, went back out, and it was just, we couldn't get any farther than 6th place. Thought we had it all squared away that night. The next day we had our round 8. The exact thing happened again in race 2, but just a different coupler. It just moved down away. Now in 3rd place in points, second in manufacturer's points, and second in team points. And there's no margin for error now. With all the issues we had, it still feels so great that we won both Sonoma and NOLA rounds, sweeping the weekend on a brand new chassis. And the reason behind that is, there was minimal stuff that we needed to do. I mean, there was, besides, a couple adjustments there and there, since our knowledge from the Veloster moved over to this chassis, and the Hyundai platform just out of the box is really good to work with. It was so easy just to get the car up to speed. There was minimal effort to get the lap times needed. The tire degradation is so minimal, and it's really only because the chassis is so easy to work on, and it's developed to be a race car for the street nonetheless. So, all right, it is the end of the season, and let's talk about what happened the second half. That is our 2023 TC America Manufacturers Championship car. That's the car that gave us the win for Hyundai. The best part is we did it in style. We had amazing last 3 rounds. Road America, we kind of knew that we're going to do pretty well there because our car, low drag, long wheelbase, it's just something that track really likes to favor. We ended up P1 in race 1 by the slimmest of margins, and then race 2 was a P2, which was still good, closed the gap to what we needed to for our Manufacturers Championship, Team Championship, and Drivers Championship. The turning point of the entire season was Sebring. Sebring, we went there knowing that usually we struggle at, and it was actually the opposite. And it was our competitors that struggled. That worked out well for us because we had a pole on both races and both races P1s. That allowed us to really close the gap, actually be on top for the manufacturers and the teams. We just now had to go into Indy knowing that we need to be on the top step to secure those championships. And we did. Race 1 in Indy, and it wasn't until the restart after an incident that we were able to get into the lead and win our class, which then officially secured as champions in the TC America Manufacturers Championship. That then also set us up for race 2, where we just needed to finish the race to allow for the team championship. That netted us a championship in both TC America teams and Manufacturers Championship. To work with a manufacturer, to bring them a Manufacturers Championship is priceless. And that's something that is just very important to us, very important to Hyundai. And showing that in the paddock, the fans, is awesome. I really appreciate, you guys watching this. I'm grateful that you see that we're using a street car and bringing it so easily to a race car, and working with such a great company that put a good presence in the United States as a motorsport leader. And if you have any questions, you can always comment in the video below, but otherwise, I'll see you guys at the racetrack.